All right, guys, settle in. Seriously, grab a blanket, dim the lights, and turn up the volume. Because today, we're not just telling a story, we're stepping into a true nightmare. This isn't just about a creepy guy, it's about a love so twisted, so unbelievably deranged, it defies every single thing you thought you knew about obsession. This story is a wild, terrifying roller coaster, and it's 100% real. So hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready, because this is going to be the longest, most chilling true horror story I have ever told you. The Vision. This whole insane journey starts not in some dark alley, but in the mind of a 12-year-old boy named Carl Tanzler in Dresden, Germany, all the way back in 1889. Carl was just a kid, but he had a dream that would literally define his entire life. He called it a vision, and he said it was sent by a spirit. In this vision, he was in a vast, dark, empty space. Suddenly, a woman appeared, shrouded in a soft, ethereal light. She was an aristocrat, dressed in an old white gown. She told him her name was Constantia. She was a distant relative who had died long ago, but she wasn't alone. Another face appeared behind her, a beautiful young woman with pale skin, striking dark eyes, and a look of deep sorrow. Constantia looked at Carl, her voice echoing in the darkness, and gave him a mission. She said, "Carl, remember this face. This girl will come to you, and she will be dying. You must use everything in your power to save her. She must not die." Carl woke up in a state of absolute terror, drenched in sweat. He was shaking, but he wasn't scared because of the dream. He was scared because he knew it was real. He couldn't get the girl's face out of his mind. He saw her everywhere. Years went by and the vision would return, always reminding him of his sacred purpose. He was in his teens, his 20s, his 30s, and he was still waiting for this girl in his vision to show up. So while he's waiting, what is Carl doing? He's a total oddball. He's super smart, a genius really in science, engineering, and medicine, but he never got a formal degree. Still, he walked around with a white lab coat, insisting everyone call him doctor. He became an engineer in the German army, got married, and had 2 daughters. But even then, he was distant, obsessed with his work and his visions. When World War I hit, his family immigrated to Key West, Florida, but Carl stayed behind. After the war, he was working on some weird airship and glider designs in Australia when he got arrested for being a German national. After a brief stint in jail, he was released and immediately headed to America to find his family. He finally arrived in Key West in 1927. He changed his name to Carl von Cosel to hide his German roots and got a job as an X-ray technician at the U.S. Marine Hospital. This was it. He was now in a hospital, a doctor, in the exact place he felt he was meant to be. The stage was set for destiny. Or so he thought. The fateful encounter. The moment came in April 1930. A young woman, just 21 years old, was admitted to the hospital. Her name was Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos. She was Cuban-American, and by all accounts, she was breathtakingly beautiful. She was sick, terribly sick, with a hacking cough and a weary look in her dark eyes. Carl saw her from across the room, and the world stopped. The girl from his vision, the one he had been waiting for his entire life, was standing right there. He described her as the vision of beauty from his dreams. His heart raced. His purpose, his mission had finally arrived. He approached her family, a look of desperate urgency on his face. He wasn't just a technician. He was a man sent by God. He told her mother, "I will do everything to save her." The family, poor and desperate for any help, didn't question this strange man. They just felt a glimmer of hope. Carl became her personal physician. He brought her special tonics, homemade medicines, and weird experimental treatments. He would run x-rays on her constantly, not for the hospital, but for himself, to reassure himself that she was improving. He was totally obsessed. He showered her with expensive gifts, jewelry, clothes, everything her family couldn't afford. It was a bizarre, one-sided courtship with a girl who was literally fighting for every breath. He finally confessed his love. Elena, a young woman with a fatal disease, just wanted peace. She thanked him, but she couldn't love him back. It was too much. Carl kept trying. He had to save her. This was his divine mission. But, as you know, some battles you just can't win. Elena had tuberculosis, and back then it was a death sentence. In October 1931, Elena died. Carl was completely shattered. His purpose, his destiny had failed. He was a broken man. He begged Elena's family to let him pay for everything. He bought a massive, expensive tomb and a special coffin. The family was heartbroken, but they were also touched by this doctor's devotion. They let him do as he pleased, living with the dead. After the funeral, Carl's grief turned into something else, something terrifying. Every single night, he went to her tomb. He'd sit there, singing to her, telling her about his day, and keeping vigil over her grave. The town thought it was sad at first, but days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. He was always there. He had a key to her tomb, and he'd go inside just to be with her coffin. Then things escalated. Carl started hearing her voice, or at least he claimed he did. He said Elena was begging him from the grave to take her away. He said she was cold and lonely. You guys, I'm telling you, this is the point where it goes from creepy to full-blown horror. In April 1933, almost 2 years after she died, Carl came to the cemetery with a little red wagon. He unlocked her tomb, pulled out her decaying coffin, and very carefully took her out. He placed her body in the wagon and wheeled her out of the cemetery, past the tombstones, and right back to his home. The neighbors noticed he stopped going to the cemetery. They assumed he had finally gotten over his grief. What they didn't know was that he had brought his grief and Elena's body right into his living room. A house of horrors. Inside his house, Carl realized Elena's body was in a terrible state of decomposition. He knew he had to fix her. What he did next is so disturbing, it's almost hard to believe. He took piano wire to reconnect her bones, which had fallen apart. He put glass balls in her eyeballs to replace her missing eyeballs. He meticulously rebuilt her skin using layers of wax, plaster, and silk. He filled her decaying insides with rags and cotton. He used a variety of chemicals and oils and drenched her in perfumes to cover the horrific smell. He had dressed her in beautiful gowns, put a wig on her head, and even added makeup to her face. Carl was convinced that he could bring her back to life. He even came up with a ridiculous plan to launch her body into the stratosphere, believing cosmic rays would reanimate her. He drew up plans for a rocket. It was a delusion so complete it was terrifying. The discovery and aftermath. Nearly a decade after Elena's death, her sister, Florinda, started getting a bad feeling. Carl would talk about Elena in the present tense, as if she were still alive. Florinda was suspicious. One night, she went to his house and peeked through the window. What she saw was Carl dancing with a figure that looked just like her sister. She screamed and ran to the door, pounding on it. Carl, startled, tried to hide. The lights went out, the music stopped. But Florinda was insistent. When he finally opened the door, she pushed past him. That's when she saw it. A horrifying, mutilated wax figure of her sister, sitting in a chair, smelling of decay and chemicals. It was Elena. Florinda ran to the police. Carl didn't resist. He was found sitting in his house, alone, with Elena. He calmly confessed everything, believing he had done nothing wrong. The story was a sensation. The police and doctors were horrified. But here's the kicker. The court found him mentally stable. You heard me. A man who stole a corpse, rebuilt it, and lived with it for 7 years was deemed sane. And because of the statute of limitations, the charges against him were dropped. He was a free man. Elena's body was put on display at a local funeral home. Over 6,800 people came to see her, a morbid public spectacle of Carl's deranged love. She was eventually reburied in an unmarked grave to prevent Carl from ever finding her again. Carl spent the rest of his life alone, but not truly alone. He created a life-sized mannequin of Elena and lived with it until his death in 1952. He was found with the mannequin, a testament to an obsession that lasted a lifetime. So guys, what do you think? Was Carl a monster or a tragic figure of undying love? This story proves that love, when it becomes obsession, can turn a man into a monster. It's a terrifying reminder of just how thin the line is between romance and madness. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you made it this far, please hit that subscribe button. It's the only way to make sure you get all the true, terrifying stories right here. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.